The gate peg bind off produces a firm, relatively inelastic edge and is worked around the gate pegs. This cast on is worked around the gate pegs to ensure even tension across the bind off and preventing any of the bind off stitches from drawing in too tightly. On the working end of the yarn, still being fed by the tension mast, pick up the first stitch and transfer it to its neighbor behind the gate peg. Manually knit back through both stitches, binding off one stitch. Repeat this process. Pick up the edge stitch, transfer it to its neighbor behind the gate peg, pulling the needle so that both loops are behind the latch, manually feeding the yarn and knitting back, binding off the second stitch. When working this bind off, do not cut or break the yarn being supplied by the tension mast. This occurs after all of the stitches have bound off and prevents running out of yarn. Be patient when working this bind off. It's a bit tricky to learn and master depositing the stitch behind the gate peg, but in time, you'll get used to it. Once the last stitch has been knit through, you can break or cut the yarn end, pulling it through the last bound off stitch, securing the edge. Depending on the project at hand, you may wish to take a very long yarn end to be used for seaming later. Don't cut the yarn end too short, as you'll need to weave this end in later to clean up your work. Once the yarn end is secured, remove weights and pull or peel the knitting off of the gate pegs.